it was that moment where I saw that cow that I just decided, that's it, I'm done. And I could see that in the future, even when I got promoted and I got to become an area manager and a divisional manager, and I could see where I was headed with it all, that I was never really going to be, I didn't want to play that game. Are you feeling stuck in the rat race? In this video, I'm going to give you the 5 steps that I wish I could have given to my former self to help me get released from the grind of the 9 to 5. First, I want to tell you my story. Basically, I went through school and really didn't know what I wanted to do, like most people. There was a pivotal moment though where everything changed. I was basically enrolled in everything that I thought was the smartest subjects to get me to university, because I thought at that time that going to university was the best thing I could do to increase my chances of success in life. And so I was doing Math 1 and Math 2, which was basically advanced math, which enables you to get into higher level university courses. And I remember distinctly getting my grades back from my Math 2 teacher in grade 11, and I remember him putting the piece of paper, he used to walk around the room and hand out the results from everyone's exam and give a commentary to that person, maybe a few words, in front of the whole class. And for me, he put down the piece of paper and said, "Quinn, you're going to do well in life, but not here. Maybe down in the arts department." And I was devastated. I had gotten a D and I knew I was capable of more. And from that moment onwards, I was driven to just do as best as I could, basically. So I started to do homework. That led me to engineering school, which was relatively hard to get into, but I managed to get into my local university, which the grades weren't as high as some of the top universities. So regardless, I was still in engineering school and I felt like I was on my way. And I can still remember the first week of engineering school, and we sat down and the Dean of Engineering was standing out in front, and he said to us, "Take a good look around the room, guys, because only 1 in 4 of you is actually getting through this engineering course based on the numbers." And the game is really that they have a high number of students initially and they weed it out most people until they get to a group that's really committed. And I was fortunate enough to get through those 4 years. It was a very, very difficult time for me. And after getting through engineering and thinking the whole time, if I can just get through this engineering degree, I'm set. I can get a job in engineering and, life will be great. And then I graduated in 92. And I don't know if you can remember back that far, but basically that was the last recession we had prior to the GFC. And it was a time where basically I had 3 job interviews in my final year of engineering and they all evaporated. And there was just no jobs to go to. Employers could not afford to take on graduates to train them up in the hope that they would, be a good investment. It just wasn't an option. So I ended up moving to a big town, big town relative to where I grew up, because I thought, well, if I'm going to get an opportunity as an engineer, it's going to be in a big city. It took me 9 months to get an engineering job, and I picked up a book that really changed my life, and it was called "What Color Is Your Parachute?" I'll leave a link to it below. It's quite helpful if you're at a position in your life where you want to find a new job. One of the suggestions it had was to volunteer in the work that you want to do. And I thought, okay, I want to get ahead of all these other applicants. And by this point, there was a new, in 3 months, there was a new lot of students that were looking for work because they would be graduating from fourth year as well. So I started to just find employers that I wanted to work for, and I rang them and I said, look, would you be interested in me volunteering in your office? I'm happy to change the garbage. I just want an opportunity to be amongst the people in this business. And I only had to make 2 calls, and it took a lot of guts for me to do those calls. I remember being shit scared, basically. But the second call, my voice is wavering, and I'm saying to the guy, look, I just want the opportunity to come and change your garbage. And he goes, yeah, okay. How about once a week? Come in and you can spend a few hours. And they never made me change the garbage. I only went 2 or 3 times because a few weeks later, I got a job interview for a trainee manager in what seemed to be an incredible opportunity. And in that interview, I was able to say, look, I'm volunteering at this place. I just wanted to get experience. And I think, honestly, I feel like that was the decider for them to take me on in this company. And then I ended up working for this company as a trainee manager, and they basically sent me up north to the north of the country to become a trainee plant manager. And I gave him my own plant after 6 months. They won a contract supplying concrete to a bunch of railway bridges and culverts that were being built. And I was the plant manager, and I was probably about 23, 24 years old, something like that. And I had a bunch of trucks and a bunch of guys to look after, and it was the most unbelievably stressful experience that you could ever imagine. I had one truck catch on fire. I had another truck fall over with a full load of concrete in it. I had trucks sliding into the side of the road, into ditches when it rained. I was so young, yet I was dealing with these guys that were 20 years older than me that were project managers, and they were like, we need our concrete like now, and we've got all these men and machinery, and if you're not on site at this time, we're going to charge that back to your company. So there was an enormous amount of stress. The height of the stress came from a kind of embarrassing situation I got myself into because I was actually making the concrete. We were adding different admixtures to retard the concrete. So basically where I was working is quite hot, and you add this admixture to retard the concrete, they call it. And essentially it just means it doesn't go hard as quickly so that they can put it into place. And unbeknownst to me, I had accidentally added the retarder twice. And so I got a phone call a couple of days later, and they said, Quinn, that concrete that you sent to us the other day, well, you could put it in a wheelbarrow and take it to somewhere else, and you could replace it somewhere else. The concrete hasn't gone hard. And this was a bridge, and this was the pylon for a bridge, and they don't stop working. They kept putting stuff on top of the concrete that hadn't gone hard. And I didn't know until the 30-day test, so it's roughly a month, until a month later that the test had passed, and our company was then not responsible for, dismantling the bridge and replacing the pylon that was in there, because they were on a time schedule and they had to get the bridge to their client on time, so they just kept building. And I just can't explain to you the stress that I was under during that time. But I made it through that job. And towards the end, I remember I was in this, we had our concrete plant on this dairy farm, and I remember this cow walking by, and I remember just looking at that cow and thinking to myself, oh man, that cow looks happier than I am. You know, the cow is just in the now, just walking by and completely unstressed and having its food and having its water. And I just remember thinking, you know, things have got to change. I need to really change what I'm doing here and take things to the next level, because I just can't do this anymore. And I could see that in the future, you know, even when I got promoted and I got to become an area manager and a divisional manager, and I could see where I was headed with it all, that I was never really going to be, like, I didn't want to play that game. It wasn't me. So it was that moment where I saw that cow that I just decided, that's it, I'm done. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how it was going to work out, but I knew that things were going to change. So basically, I took responsibility for my life, and I knew things had to change. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my journey as I take you through each of the steps. So step one for you is to really think about your future. You can write this down, or if you're listening to this in the car, maybe hit pause, or, well, actually don't hit anything. But just take the time to think about your future as it will be if you continue on the path that you're on at the moment. Step two is really to dream about the future that you want. Really imagine what your future could be like. Don't worry about how you could actually achieve anything that comes up, because you really just want to feel how you will feel when you live this new future. In step three, I really want you to think about why you need to change, because the why is what will give you the drive to really make a difference, to go from this place that you're currently in now to a better future. So think about the why, whether that's your family or whether that's about your future happiness, or just thinking about the things that you can do. Write it all down. Get really clear about why you need to make this change. For me, it was pretty clear. I knew that if I stayed on this path, I would just be so dissatisfied with my life. I was relatively young, so it was easy for me. Well, it wasn't easy. I was giving up a massive amount of work that I'd strove to get to this point, and I felt like I was giving this all up. So there was regret that I'd done all that work. There was worry that I was making the wrong decision. But I knew in my heart that things had to change. So by the same token, I knew that if I didn't burn my bridges, that I would be able to move forward in a positive way, and potentially, if I made a bad, for some strange reason I made a bad decision, I could go back and do what I had originally done. Well, fortunately that never happened. And I don't think it ever really happens for anyone. Once you choose to make a change, you've changed. Even if you end up staying in that job, you're probably going to be less satisfied than ever, because within yourself, deep down, that you have to change. So step 4 is make a plan. And for me, this happened over a period of months after I'd had the cow incident, and I basically decided to travel. I didn't really have a good plan at all. And it's probably not what I would advise somebody my age now, but it is something I would say to somebody who was quite young. You know, you can still come back to your job. You can work when you're overseas, which is what I ended up doing as well, but not in my profession. But there's many ways that you can move forward in a positive way without burning your bridges. For me, as I said, I ended up traveling overseas and I ended up working, and I had no idea that it would go on for many years. I think about 7 years I lived and worked overseas before coming back to Australia. And by that point, I was working for myself, and I've worked for myself ever since. And that has enabled me to create a life of time freedom, and I'm able to just really focus on the things that are meaningful. I really wish that for you as well. Step 5 is the big one, is take action. What is one thing you can do that takes you in the right direction towards where you want to go in this future you? Is it something that you've been putting off perhaps? Or is it something that maybe you just know in your heart that it'll inspire you to potentially do something else? Yeah, something simple. Just do one thing that takes you in that direction. And I believe you'll be far closer to not working the 9-to-5 grind like I was, and maybe you are. Guys, I really hope you find this useful. Thanks for listening, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Cheers.